So I'm just going to use this, and what this does is it takes all that juice off, but it still leaves the paper, which is nice. So you need to have Viva paper towel, and then I usually have my Bounty paper towel, not the cheap brand, because this is soft enough to do the job and strong enough to do the job. So don't buy the cheap stuff if you're doing this. Use the cheap stuff to clean up.
What's your surface, Diane? What are you painting on?
Today I'm working on Centurion, and I found that Centurion, when I first started using it, sometimes it was too glassy or too rough or too dry, and they seem to have worked out their formula now, and I really, really like it now.
It's a board though, right?
It's a panel.
A panel.
Yeah, and I like the panels too because I paint so much, so it's easier to stack. But I just love these, and right now they're the cheapest good quality canvas that's out there. I also use Da Vinci dual side panels too, and I like both sides for different reasons. Sometimes I'll use the canvas depending on the size and stuff like that, but for the small ones, basically about this size and down, I'll use the panels. So I'm using all Winsor Newton paint. Again, it's the best quality for the cheapest price, except for my yellow ochre. I just find that the creaminess of the Rembrandt paint is way nicer than the Winsor Newton, and it's a cheap color because it doesn't have a lot of chroma to it, so I don't mind spending a little bit more for it. Today I'm using the Zorn palette, which is basically your primary palette but a toned down version because there's really no bright colors in the face. So I'm using Cad Red Medium, Yellow Ochre, a little bit of cerulean blue, ivory black, and white. So the black is like my blue, the yellow ochre is like my yellow, and Cad Red is like my red on the color wheel, 3 colors. I think I bought a new one, but of course I didn't bring it. Yeah, so what this does is it simplifies my palette so I remember what colors I mixed so I can mix them again. If I have 100 colors on here and I use them all, it's really hard for me to remember how to mix them. So with something that's as difficult as painting the face, I like to keep my colors as easy as possible to remember. So I'm only basically using 3 colors in white, plus a little bit of cerulean blue, because sometimes the black doesn't give you enough blue color to it. The only high chroma color that I'm using is Cad Red Medium. And there you see a lot of pink in all the fleshy parts of the face, like the ears, the lips, and the nose. So today I just put a little wash behind here. And I always start my portraits the same way. I don't know if anyone watched the Leonardo da Vinci on PBS last night and how he measured everything out. Basically, that's what I do. Not like him, but I use a measurement, and it helps me to get the face and the features down as quickly as possible. Then I use things like cylinders or shapes, squares, circles, or the letters of the alphabet to kind of imagine how I'd map out the face a little bit, which I'll explain more as I go along. So right now, it's always good never to make the face larger than life size because it appears, like my teachers would say, gorilla-like. So I always like to start a little bit smaller than life size, and then it seems to get bigger. So I end up doing okay. Because I only have a short amount of time, I'm not going to do it super big. But basically I'm starting with an egg shape. All right, now he's been sitting for a while, and he's kind of relaxed into his pose right now, which is usually what I do as a warm-up. I wait until he settles in, but he is all settled in right now. So I'm just going to make basically a nice egg shape, all right? Now this paint has kind of sunk in a little bit too, so I start a number of different ways. So right now I'm using my dirty brushes. I very rarely clean my brushes, but I paint every day, so don't do this. If you do get dry brushes and you can't use them anymore, throw them in some ivory soap and let them, make a little slurry, like grate it up like cheese, put a little water, and let them sit for 5 days. Don't let it get the wood, and they'll be like brand new. Mm-hmm. So that's my money-making tip today. Money saving. All right, so when I start, basically I mix my 3 colors, red, yellow, and black together and see what I get. I'm basically just trying to find a color that's dark enough for me to see what I'm doing. Okay, so he is not looking straight at me, he's kind of looking a little bit to the side. If I was to draw him looking straight at me, what I would do is draw a line in the middle, so I'm basically cutting it in half. I'm cutting it in half again, and I'm cutting it in half again. Okay, so if I was looking straight on right now, what I would do is I would say there's 5 eyes across on the head. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One eye would go in here, one eye would go in here, and then I'd have eyes on either side. Because he's turned to the side, I have to think differently, all right? So I'm just gonna go on just a little bit further with this so you have an idea of what I'm doing. So, when I paint straight on, the tear duct, if I bring it straight down, is where the nostrils form, okay? Now this line here is where the bottom of the nose falls. A lot of times people think that this is the bottom of the nose, the tip of the nose, and they bring it down too far. No, you want to bring it down, so the bottom of the nose is here, so the tip would be here. So basically my nostrils would be somewhere in here. If I bring a line down to where the pupils are here, that's where the corner of the mouth is. And then the bottom lip usually falls on the next line here, and I find where the crack of the mouth would be, and depending on the width there. So that would be where the main features of the face is. Then what usually happens is, and not with everybody, especially the way that women, do their eyebrows and stuff, the back of the eye kind of follows this here. And then this here is where the eyebrows may start, and then you see the forehead kind of moving back, and then the hairline starts in here, okay? So if I was looking straight on, that's the way that I would map that in. But this is more fun what I'm seeing right now. And a lot of times when I have a portrait session and I invite people over, they want to be where the face is looking straight at them, but they're not doing themselves any favors. Okay, so now he's tilting, which is going to give me even more work to do. So can you just tilt your head? No, now you're a little bit too far. I like the tilt, but not as much. But all right, so basically when I'm trying to find what direction things are going, and I'll use my brush, and I'll think, all right, this is pointing to like 10 o'clock. If I was to look at a clock, I see my brush is pointing like that, so it gives me a good idea of the slant. Okay, now drawing is the most important part of doing a portrait. You can get away with a lot of stuff outside, but you can't with the portrait. So you have to be really careful. So now I'm just gonna do this. This is where his eyes are gonna be here. Okay, now his eyes aren't in the center of the head anymore, so I've got to kind of figure out where that would be. So the center of the head right now I see is where the left part of his right part of the nose is here. So I'm seeing something like this, and this is a great place to start with the portrait because it's very rigid. It doesn't move when you smile, you get tired, so it's a great place to start. Okay, when I start my painting, when I start putting in my, I start with just putting in a few lines just to kind of get the gist of the picture. Then I start with 3 values, my lights, my mediums, and my darks. Okay, and once I get that done, then I go to 5 values, which is my lights, my darks, my medium, my halftones, and my reflected light. Okay, that's what John Singer Sargent would do as well. All right, so I'm squinting like my life depended on it, and I'd rather start off too dark than not dark enough because it's easier to lighten things than it is to darken them once you have the lights down. So I'm squinting, and I'm kind of seeing this shape now. So I'm going to make this a slant and this a slant too. So I'm still cutting his nose, where the nose is going to start right around here. So basically what I'm seeing is kind of like this is the bulb of his nose, and then his mustache starts about right here. So for me, it's easier to draw the shapes in with the shadowing too, but I'm using my map very, very clearly. So now I see kind of where his nostril is here, so I'm just going to throw that in there. And then if this is where his eye starts here, it starts right in the corner. and it kind of does this here. So if that's how wide my eye is, then I need that much space in between the next eye. So this here is the length I'm using here, and then this eye is going to start here somewhere. Okay, so putting in glasses, that's usually the last thing I do, because that's a decoration, basically. What's that? No, I like them, because I'm going to use them to measure. Anything that you can use to measure is a good thing. So I haven't done this in a while, so I'm kind of going by the seat of my pants, because winter is when I do all my portraits. There's the famous Carol Arnold there. I got paints in the car if you want to paint along. I'll mention that. All right, so now here is where the bottom lip starts. He has nice full lips. So that's basically where the crack of his mouth is. And now if I bring a line like a plumb line here, this is where his pupil is. The crack of his mouth is going to be here and here. And now the top lip basically it points up to the nostrils, but I like to think of it like a seagull. Like here's a cute little seagull flying. Anything that reminds you of something that you can draw easily is a good thing to do. Okay, so now it's already starting to look like him. All right, so now I've got all this down here, and I can still put in some of my shadows in here. Okay, so I'm looking at the eye here. You see, I'm not really putting in any features. I'm just kind of mapping this out for right now, and then the rest is going to go kind of fast. Now, the last portrait I did was in Rockport, and I had like 4 of these easels, and I picked up the wrong one. I didn't have my paint. And John Caggiano let me use his paints, and he used crap, like Gombaka. Don't use that stuff. So I had to do the portrait with his crappy paint, and I was so discombobulated, and it ended up turning out great by the end, but it was scary. All right, so now I'm kind of looking, the way his beard is here, it's a really good landmark shape to look at. So I'm looking at it with my brush again, and from the corner of his eye to here is kind of like a straight line. So I'm always looking at something up here to figure out what's happening down here. I'm not looking at the actual places where everything is as much as I am comparing it to other parts of the painting here. Okay, so this is where I started, comes up a little higher, and then I see about here is where the shadow in his hat comes, and then there's about, I'd say, almost a ½ inch here, that's doing that there. Okay, now if I want to measure, because I don't see his chin, which would be about here, I need to measure how long that beard is. So I'm going to put this at the bottom of his nose and measure it to the bottom of his beard. Okay, and then, first of all, so then I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to measure it to something else, like if his face is this wide here, it's the same as this here. So let me I always measure, then double check. All right, so I don't really have enough information yet on that, so I'm just gonna guess at this point, but from here to here is about equal to here from here. So this is going to be a little bit longer. All right, so I'm just guessing at this point because I don't have enough information down. Now I'm looking at the distance between here and here. That's very important too. So his hair is kind of doing this. You see a wisp coming out over here. And then I see that this looks kind of like a rectangle here. So I'm going to put that in. Now there's 1 eye, 2 eyes, 3 eyes. I can see another eye on this side. I only see a ½ an eye on that side, so I'm going to add it over here. So that's where I still get the 5 eyes in. I'm just moving them around a little bit. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4.5, 5. Okay, so if I'm always going to be using this to just keep comparing where everything is. Just like in Leonardo da Vinci, if you look at horses, if you look at anything that he painted, he measured in this way. Okay, now the top of the ear usually comes where the eye is, but because he's leaning, it's coming up a little bit higher. And this is where you really have to be on your toes measuring, because if you make a mistake here, you're going to be just fixing it the whole time. I'm looking at the width of this compared to the width over here. There we go. And this feels pretty good. Okay, now I need to find out, the bottom of the hat comes right to where this is here, so now I know exactly where that falls. I'm not using a lot of medium at this point here. And the middle of the ear is where the hat starts. Now I want to see how tall the hat is. So I'm going to measure the top of the hat to the rim is equal to the eyes to the bottom of the lip. So the top of the hat should be about here. Okay. So at this point, I'm not terribly, I want to be close, but if I'm not perfect, it's okay because I'm going to be fixing this as I go along. Yeah,
Do you always work from life, Diane?
it's the best way, but no.
It's hard.
I do mainly life. I hate just doing studio work, but I usually do a painting in the morning and then paint all the rest of the day in the studio. Sometimes I do 2 or 3. I used to do 5 paintings a day, but I'm much faster now, so I get just as much done with the time that I have now. So that's a good thing because your body doesn't hold up like when you were young, but your mind is better, so thank goodness for that. All right, so now I'm seeing where his collar falls. On the right side, it's about right here, and it's doing this. And then this side is just a little bit lower. And I'm also looking at this negative space here, just to be sure. Yep, and that comes down a little bit more because I thought this came a little lower than this, but then I looked at this and it looked a little short. And then when I remeasured, that's about right where it comes here. Okay. And then where his zipper is plumb with this eye over here. And there. Now I have enough information. I don't want to spend any more time with the drawing because I'm going to wreck the whole thing. Okay, so there's a number of things I can do. I can take a little bit of Gamsol and pull out some of these lights in here, which I think I'm going to do, and get rid of some of this mess here that I've made. Or I can simply draw it, which sometimes is easier because now I'm not going to have I don't want too much juice down here. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to make 3 puddles. I'm going to start with my darks and work into my lights. And I'm going to start with bigger brushes rather than smaller ones. All right, now he has a lot of light on his face, so there isn't really a lot of darks. The darks that I have right now kind of make me happy. I'm just going to put a little bit more down in some of his shadows. So I'm going to use just a little bit of my cerulean blue to my black because I feel, because he's got that reddish orange here, I'm seeing kind of a lot of these bluish greens in here. So I'm just going to throw this in here to remind myself to revisit that. So I'm thinking harmony. So when the only color I see a lot of right now is this orangey red. Mm-hmm. So the harmony is red and green, or
Orange and blue.
what's that?
Orange and blue.
Orange and blue, right. So it's kind of like a bluish green and yellowish orange, red. So you know what I'm saying. All right, so put that in. Now I'm going to put in some of these darks in the hat just to see where my values are in here again, because there's not a lot of darks in here. I'd rather start with putting these in here, and you're going to see this is going to happen really fast in here. So that's a little bit too wide, and that's a little bit too wide. So Now I'm gonna take just a little less black in there. And I'm just gonna put in just a little bit of these pink notes in here. Again, when I'm trying to do something, when I first mix my colors, you can see I put a little note down. If it doesn't work, I don't keep going. But I try to find out where it does work. So now that I have a little bit more of this down, I'm going to take just a little bit of my yellow ochre to this because it's a little bit too red. I want a little more orangey. And I move my petals along. I don't use the same petal all the time, so I have more to choose from. Okay, now that's just a teeny bit too dark, but again, I'd rather start off too dark than not dark enough. All right. And you see how fast, when I have my drawing down, this is going to go. When I was painting in Framingham one time, the woman that sat for me was 93 years old, and she immediately fell asleep. But because I'm fast and because I get my map down, I was able to still get her face in pretty quickly. Now that I have a little bit more in there, I'm seeing that it's a little bit too dark and too red. So I'm going to go in just a little bit more. There we go. That's nice in here. But again, now I have two colors here, so I can leave it a little bit red in some areas. That's why when I first start, I'm just trying to fill the canvas. What my teachers would have liked is in the first half hour. But I try to get it done when I'm doing a portrait this quickly. I'm trying to get it done quickly. So that's usually a half an hour is too long. So I want to get this done faster. Now I use lots of brushes, so they're like crayons. So I can use the brush, I can go back to the same brush without having to mix it again. That's too light. I'm going to add just a little cerulean blue and a little bit of orange. When you add blue and orange together, you get gray or brown. And now I need just a little more yellow in that. So you see I'm kind of testing it. If I saw it somewhere else, I would have used it before I moved along. Let me know if you need a break too, because I know that light gets hard on your eyes. What's your name again? He's in concentration mode here. Okay. But you see now, I don't really have any features down, but it's starting to look like him already. Because I'm just painting the big shapes. And my map is pretty accurate. I use it all the time, so I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty confident in what I'm doing here. Now, if I used a small brush, it would take me all day to fill this. So I really like to start with bigger brushes here. Because I'm seeing that the background really needs to be put in. So I can see that next to the lights how dark everything is. So I'm just going to make this a little bit on the blue side. I want it still to be almost black, but I want it to be kind of blue just to keep going in my harmony here. Because you want to fill the whole painting, and a lot of problems that, a lot of times people run into problems is because they want to work on the eyes and get them perfect before they move to anything else. But I like to get the whole thing filled in. There's not a lot of people that can put something down right away. You need a lot of experience for that. I just find it so much easier to just fill the whole thing in and then make your corrections afterwards. So now I want to make a brown color, still using these colors here. I've got that blue note that I just used. I'm adding a little bit of red to it, and bam, you got brown. If I need to make it a little dark, I'll just add a little bit more black. Now that's blue over there. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Do you only use Gamsol?
When I paint I can use Terpenoid Natural, but I just use the Gamsol now. It's just, and I only use it at the beginning. I don't really use it once I get going. I use paint. I just want, at the beginning, you want your paint to be thin, and at the end, you want to have some areas thick and some areas thin. You want to keep your darks thin and transparent, and you want to keep your lights thick and juicy. Okay, so now I might take that same color that has a little bit more blue than orange in it. Bam, okay? But I have a warm light hitting this, so it feels a little bit yellower to me. So I'm adding just a little bit of my yellow ochre. See, only 3 colors. I'm using the same 3 colors everywhere, but just a different recipe. All right, so that makes it much easier. And again, I'm not trying to make this perfect now. I'm just trying to fill this in the first half hour. Or quicker if I can. Okay, now I have this color on my brush. I want to use it everywhere before I go the next color. That's how you save time. And it also helps you to keep moving around the painting. When you get stuck on one part of the face, you get tired of it very quickly. But when you work everywhere, you have an opportunity to do a lot of measuring still and comparing. All right. Again, I'd rather be a little bit too dark than not dark enough. And already, I put big swaths down already. I'm running out of color. Okay, and every time I go for a new color, I'm going for a new brush. It's just a time saver. When you're working with the model, they have an expiration date for their focus. They get tired very, very quickly. So I want to work as quickly as possible. That is simply cad red with a little bit of white to it. Okay. So now I still have all these brushes. I can go back in here and put his beard in a little bit better, maybe a little bit more of his mustache. I tend to pop around when I'm first starting. And I like to have enough paint down that I can blend right on my canvas if I have to. Okay. So that's phase 1. Now, once my painting is completely filled in like it is, and I go back to my Viva paper towel, and it's very hard to repair something when you have too much paint down. So now I'm going to take it all off. So by using Viva and not something with a texture, and this is soft enough, it's going to pick up all the paint that I don't need and leave a nice clean surface here, as Richard Schmitz would say of his cottage industry is selling paper towels. So Carol had the most wonderful opportunity of working closely with Richard Schmitz. And Nancy Susan. All right, so now I get the whole thing done. It's dry enough, so now I'm going to take my Bounty, and as Richard Schmitz, I only saw him do work twice, but it was life-changing. And then he'd like to do this, kind of messing up his painting. What I also like to do is kind of make a few repairs, soften some edges. Because hair is very soft. You don't want to paint every strand. And by doing this, it really keeps it nice and soft. Not only that, but I'm keeping my paint nice and thin too, and I'm also double checking my drawing.
One question.
Yep.
What was the purpose to go with the Bounty owl? Just like so.
Well, it's to kind of loosen my edges and take a little paint off and kind of do a little blending without getting too accurate at this point, because I'm still at the beginning. You want to save your details to the end. So basically what you want to do is if you're looking in the mirror after you take a shower and you see it all, fogged up, and then eventually you can start to see your face come through. That's kind of what I'm trying to do with this. So right now it's very soft, but I'm pretty accurate with everything that I've got. So right now, while I'm still, pretty not too tired, I'm just gonna make a couple corrections where I see them. Again, starting with my darks and working into my lights. So the first thing I notice is this can get a little bit darker in here. Now my paintbrushes might have a little junk on them, but that's okay, it just makes it more interesting. But when you're a student, don't do this. Do it right. Okay, so now I have this dark color on my brush. I'm gonna try to use it everywhere, so I'm gonna go back into the eyes. Just bring them out a little bit, make sure the nostril is in the right place. No, that's too dark. People have a tendency of painting nostrils black. They're not. There's a lot of warmth in there, a lot of red, because you can almost see through the skin. It's so light in there. So I'm putting kind of a nice dark orange in there. So I'm going to use this color everywhere I can before that I go to the next. And when I'm painting here, I'm seeing what this value is over here. When I'm painting this, I'm kind of seeing where this goes over here. When I'm painting that, I'm comparing it to some of the color over here. So I'm never really looking at what I'm painting. I'm looking at something else and comparing it to that. All right, so now I'm going to go back into my lights because there's not a hell of a lot of darks here. And again, I always test my color before I start attacking my painting. It's a little bit too dark. So I like using the cerulean blue with the other three colors because it's a very weak color. So if something is too bright, it's really easy to go in there and dull it down just a little bit without changing the color. So this is just a little bit too bright, so I added a little blue to it, and now it feels good. And because I started a little bit too dark, I can leave a little bit of that dark in a few places, and it just makes it easier to fill this painting in. I've got my colors down there that didn't take me long to put, and now I have an extra color too, so it's really a time saver to work this way. And you can keep the questions coming. I can actually paint and talk at the same time.
What kind of palette do you use? I mean, is it a glass or?
I use a glass at home, a tempered glass at home, and I use the wood. And I use a paper palette.
Okay.
It depends on sometimes it's easy to use a paper palette to clean up, but I never use the white paper palettes. I always use the gray ones. So anything that's on the light side, I want to keep basically the same value. I can change the color within that value, but I want the value to be the same. So if this lip over here isn't light, it's the same value as up in here. The color might be a little bit different, but at this point I'm still too much at the beginning to worry about that. Now, right now I have my darks, my mediums, and my lights. So now I can start going into my 5 values, all right? So anything on the light side has to be lighter than anything on the dark side. All right, so this side here is surrounded by all these dark notes in here. So this light here can't be as light as the light on this side. Both cheeks are the same person, but this is surrounded by some of these dark notes here, and some of those dark notes get saturated into that light, so it's not going to appear as light as what's over here. Okay, we're going to give you a break in about 2 more minutes. Because when you're sitting under this light, it's really hard because 1, it's warm, and 2, it really gets in your eyes. So the model, you have to take care of your model.
Keep going.
All right, well, still, it's good for the artists to take a break too. But still, it's like if you're fresh, sometimes you absolutely do need a break. But it's a good excuse, because when the model takes a break, I'm not going to take a break from what I'm doing. I'm just taking a break from looking at him, which means I'm going to clean my palette, make sure I have enough paint out, and so on. All right, so I'm squinting still, like my life depended on it. So now I'm going to smaller brushes. I had all my big brushes, I got all the serious work done there. So now I can go to my smaller brushes here. So again, there's something about the way that I have the light set up that really makes this, is really simplifying this. Because there's so much light in here, there's really not a lot of shadow. Now what John Singer Sargent would do is he would paint the middle of the face with a lot of reds. So I have the three colors, red, yellow, and black. So the middle of the face is very fleshy, and that's why you're going to have a little bit more red in that area. The top of your head is very bony, which we really don't see. So you'd use a little bit more yellow in there because you're not seeing through the skin so much. And generally, the bottom of the face is leading away from the light, so you're going to get a little more cool color in there. So again, if you don't know what you're doing, having these fundamental rules helps you to pick the right colors, and then you learn to see them. A lot of times when I have students painting outside, they're like, I don't see that color. I'm like, well, just try putting a note like that up there, and all of a sudden it turns your eye onto that color. So it's something that you have to work at, and sometimes it's not that color, but there's a portion of that color in there, and all of a sudden it starts to help you see all those other colors. So just by doing that, now I'm seeing more of this color in here, which I went a little bit wild. I see a little bit more of this color in here, a little bit of it here. And see, it's kind of waking the face up a little bit. Red is always exciting. My father would say, put more red in the painting. Red is the most, it's the color that you see, like if you're trying to get a center of interest, it's a great way to bring notice. The eye notices red really well. It's a nice bright color. And again, I might put a bright color here, knowing I'm going to tone it down. But I'm just trying to see more colors. So I can't really see a lot of that color until I actually put those colors down. All right, so again, I'm squinting. And sometimes I have these crappy brushes, which they've gotten so crappy I've gotten rid of them. But as you can see, I have a million brushes here. So sometimes I'll use them all in one day, but I find that it's more of a time saver to use fresh brushes and clean them later than it is to worry about dirtying brushes because you hate to clean them. So this is just a dry brush right here, and it kind of has a jagged edge. So it used to have a straight line there, but I gave it a little haircut. And this is soft enough there, I can kind of blend some soft edges. So wherever you see two values that are similar, you want a soft edge. And you want your hardest edges near where you see the most contrast, okay? So in the face, the center of interest is generally the eyes, but in this case he has this wonderful hair that I can play with here. And I'm just kind of blending my colors together. I'm not necessarily putting more color down. I'm just kind of...
I'm glad you think that hair is wonderful.
It's funny, my neighbor who watches my dog looks exactly like him. And he dresses up like Santa Claus every year.
No, you always paint standing up, Diane.
Huh?
And have
You
you
always
been
paint
trying,
standing?
When you do the portrait, you really have to stand back a lot because you get tired very, very quickly. So standing is the best, it's really the best in any, you should always be standing because then you can move back. If because when you're standing next to your painting, it's really hard to see it. Okay, so now at this point here where I'm trying to get closer, I'm gonna start standing back a lot more. And then another thing I'm gonna do, if I can find it, if I didn't break it, is use my mirror. And this is a little bit too small. You don't want something bigger than this, but what I like to do is, because you get tired very quickly, I try to stand so I can see both my painting and and my model in the same view, so I can just jiggle my eyes back and forth. And you see mistakes very, very quickly because you get tired really, really fast. And the first thing that stuck out to me was this light in here. This is all the same value. So I made it just a little bit too light, and that stuck out immediately when I held up my mirror. But I kind of like where I'm going. I feel like I'm on the right track. I just want to get rid of this bright color now. I think you guys got my
No, I
yeah.
think
Okay, so now that I have this little pink on my brush that I just lightened his lip with, I want to use it everywhere before I go to the next color. And always try to use the best brushes that you can afford too. I know Carol is into the rosemary brushes. I have not found the same love for those. They're a little bit soft, but I do like using them occasionally. I used to love the silver Bristlon brushes, but they're not, I don't know, their price doubled and they don't come to the point as much. So a lot of these brushes are like 2 years old. I never wash them. But these are getting almost to the point now that they're gonna lose their nice point there and then they just die. So I'm gonna have to start looking into some new brushes, but always use the best quality of anything that you can use if you wanna paint well, because it's hard enough for you to paint, but when the things that you're using make it harder, then you're just working against yourself. So a lot of times it's like you're trying to save a dime, but you're wasting canvas because you're going to do a crappy job. So you've got to paint, like Richard Schmidt would say, like you're a millionaire, and not worry about the cost. So again, when I'm doing this here, I'm looking up here, and I'm seeing that I could have a few more areas that are dark in here. So I'm not just working in one place, I'm constantly looking around the painting. Now the hat has to fit over the head too, and that's a problem that a lot of people have. They'll make it too skinny or way too fat. So I'm going to take a little bit more and put it on this side. I'm going to take a little off of this side now. Again, I'm always comparing. The side of the hat is plumb with this area right in here. So I just feel like this comes over a little bit. And does that. Okay, so right now my palette is full. I'm going to give him a break. So I'd like you to get up and walk around just to move the blood in your body again. It's important, but just feel like where you're sitting and so you get back. But yeah, take a little walk around. I'm going to clean my palette and I want you to time me.
All right.
I mean, I could stay there forever.
Well, it's kind of fun to see how the portrait's evolving as well, you know. So basically what I do, again, I'm not worried about wasting paint, okay? This is worth maybe one glass of wine at your favorite restaurant, and we don't count that. So I'm just going to quickly scrape it all off. And now I'm going to have all this space in less than a minute to use fresh color and fresh paint. He's taking a little break. I'm taking a little break, so it's all good. You have to really be on your toes the whole time you're doing a portrait, because the model moves, you have limited amount of time, and it's hard. So you really want to, cleaning the palette, you might hate to take a break and take 5 minutes out to do that, but it's huge to do it. Yes.
What canvas do you use?
What's
your canvas?
I'm using a Centurion,
Okay.
which I kind of really like now. At first it was very uneven, like sometimes you get it slick and other days it'd be too rough, but now they seem to really perfected it.
Oh, 16 by 20.
So now that I have this dirty brush, I can also go in here and play a little bit with this, softening some edges. But I'm kind of happy with how it looks right now. So what have I been painting? 45 minutes. So let's say I have another half an hour, 45 minutes. Now I'm gonna put the glasses in. I'm gonna concentrate on the eyes. I'm gonna be standing back more, and so on and so forth.
Can I see your
So there are some brochures over here and business cards. You're welcome to. I'm doing a crafts fair in Duxbury this weekend. I've already pre-sold a bunch of paintings there, so I'm feeling it's going to go well. And you can see all my new work. There's a page that shows my new work. Hold on. Before you came in, I already introduced you so that you were coming in on this.
Oh, everybody. Looks great.
So it's a good start, I've got all I've got the cake down, now I gotta frost it. So Carol and I went to Vesper George together, and she is one of the most talented artists I know. She is so amazing. So during that break too, I'm also putting down a little bit more paint so I don't run out of paint. All right?
That's very sweet, thank you.
I'm ready when you are.
Can I ask you, why do you think you have it?
Because I'm running out of space to get some color. Now I'm going into the finish, so I want as much discipline to my work as possible. So again, I'm using lots of brushes. I have lots of paint still left out. Now I got to make sure he's in the same spot, and he'll find it. He's getting there. If it hurts, you're in the right spot. All right. So now when he gets back up, I'm not just going to go back into my painting. I'm going to check it. So that means I'm going to use my mirror. And I'm very happy with this so far. Okay, another thing that I like to do is I like to take a picture
of Bruce?
of Bruce. And then I can take a picture of my painting, try to make it the same size in the frame, and then I can switch it like this, and I can do a lot of judging that way too. That helps me to get a quick view. When it's small like that, again, you see your mistakes really, really good. So what I see the most is right now, this is more square than I have it. So I always fix the worst thing in the painting and try to make it so it's no longer the worst. Then I ask myself, what's the next worst thing? And at first your mistakes are big, then as you come to the finish, your mistakes get smaller until it's finished. So if you're stuck, always ask yourself, what's the worst thing in the painting? Now I'm gonna pull out my maul stick, and this is just so I can just keep my hand steady to get in some of the detail. All right, so I said that the beard needs to be a little bit more square. So I'm just going to do that. So this is just a fan brush that I have here. Again, it's giving me these streakish lines that kind of give the appearance of hair. Again, I have tons of brushes, and certain brushes do certain things. You see how that, what I just did really kind of pulls this together. So right now I've got a good foundation. Like I said, I built the cake. Now I have to frost it. I feel like everything's in the right place. I just have to refine it. All right, so I fixed that. I'm happy. So I'm gonna work on the eyes. Since everything is at the same level of worstness, it's all, you know, nothing is better than anything else. I'm gonna go to the center of interest, which is the eyes. And I'm gonna try to make those better. Now I'm gonna start putting in the eyeglasses as well.
Can you just tell me why you're using that stick again?
It's just to keep my hand steady. Otherwise, I'll have my finger on it and I'll be marring it up. But it's just, you know, you have a long way to reach here, so it just helps for keeping your hand steady. Again, I haven't stopped squinting while I'm looking at this. I'm trying. The second I open my eyes, I'm seeing too much. I'm trying to take away all that nasty detail that I want to save to the very end and just see the big shapes. I'm softening edges, I'm fixing my drawing. I'm trying to get my values closer. And now I have all this space to mix nice, beautiful color.
Are you using straight paint or are you using any Gamsol?
I don't
right
use
now?
any Gamsol at this point,
No?
really,
Okay,
unless
that's
I'm
what you
trying
said.
to mix it, like if, sometimes I'll take my Gamsol and I'll do this.
You're using very little paint then? Oh.
Just for a little, you know, design, and you'll see what happens with that. But, yeah, at this point, I don't use it to mix my paint anymore. So I'm looking at the nose, again, this is the most rigid part here. I see the eye connected to it, I'm looking at the shadow here, and I'm seeing that this eye comes a little bit higher. I like where the eyeglass comes about here. And it kind of blends in with the eyebrow here. Again, don't worry about making it perfect right away. Just try to figure out where it is, and then as you're going into your details, you can fix it a little bit more. Now, you don't really see the whites of his eyes, do you? So you don't paint them in. Don't paint what's not there. A lot of times when you're a student, you stop looking at the paint, the model, and you just paint what you know, and that's when you're going to get into trouble. Now it's time for me to really start standing back. And because this pole is here, that's exactly where I should be, but we'll make it work. Again, my mirror will help in that case too. I remember I had a student, and she was difficult, and I would tell her to use the mirror all day long, and she wouldn't touch it. And then she went on a workshop and spent $2,000 or $3,000, and came back saying, "You gotta try the mirror, it's the best thing." But as a student, you only hear things that you're ready to hear. Like a lot of times when I teach a class, I have beginners and advanced people in my classes. And I'm talking to everybody because at some point you're going to understand what I'm saying. I just don't know, and you don't know when you're going to understand it. But if I keep saying it over and over and over, one day you'll go, "Oh, that's what she was talking about." So now, again, I'm using a lot of brushes so I can simply go back and forth with my colors so I don't have to keep mixing them over and over and over. So you can't be afraid of dirtying brushes. So when I'm painting this nostril here, I'm looking at it with my peripheral vision while I'm looking at the eye. You can see how when I did that, I said, oh boy, I have to do this. Now I'm kind of putting the whites of his eye in there a little bit. Okay, now that I did that, I compared it to that eye, and now I'm seeing this beautiful white of his eye, highlight. So the lightest part of the eye is on the side where the light is. And one of these lights is generally going to be bigger than the other light. You don't want to make that too big, otherwise it'll look like he's on drugs. Drugs over there. Okay. So you can see how that light in the eye just brightened him right up. It just woke up the painting. All right. So again, I'm still not in panic mode. I'm still kind of just playing around, not worrying too much. I know I'm on the right track. So when I have a color on my brush, I'm going to try to use it everywhere. That is a huge time saver, and it's a great discipline to have because it forces you to look all over the page. The second I get stuck and just work in one area, then that's when my painting is going to go wrong, because I'm going to start painting what I know and not what I see. You have to look at the model more than you're painting. Again, so the highlights are one value. The light in the face is the second. The lights on the dark side of the face are the third value. Then you have your medium tones and then your darkest tones. So there's your 5 values in there. Okay. Doesn't mean the colors are all the same. It means the values are all the same. And that's what John Singer Sargent would do. And there's not a lot of people that's better than him. Did anyone see the show that was at the museum?
Yes, it's gorgeous.
Oh, and last night with the Leonardo da Vinci, it's like, all right, I'm quitting. I have too much fun though. I mean, for me, painting the model is my favorite thing to do, but there's really not a big market for selling portraits on the East Coast. If I was down in Atlanta, Georgia, I'd be rich. Or in Canada, where I have relatives there, they would stand in line for hours to be painted. But here we're like, what do I want a painting of me on the wall for? So it's hard to make a living, but for me it's the most fun thing to do, and it's the hardest. So I usually do it in the winter. I'll set up models, which I'm getting, usually right after Christmas I'll start getting models and doing that, because it's just my favorite thing to do. Well, my second favorite thing to do is plein air painting, because you get to be outside and you get to meet people. And my husband passed away about 4 years ago now, so for me, talking to people is not as easy as it used to be. Like, I need my people, and I'm painting all by myself all the time, so I like to put myself, as Carol knows, I'll find the busiest spot in the area and I'll stand there. So we were painting at Coast Guard Beach, and I said, watch this, Carol. We went the bottom of the stairs, everyone had to go by us going down, and everyone had to go by us going up. And I think we both sold the painting that day.
I did.
Well, I sold the painting that day, and I always wear a pink hat so I stand out, because I want all the people to come out. That's fun for me. That's the fun part. So don't be afraid of going outside. It's really such a wonderful thing. And now that the days are going shorter, I also got a dog, which was probably the worst mistake that I've ever made. I love him and I'm glad I have him, but he's really cramped my style.
Now you have to go outside, right?
Well, he is afraid of everything, so I can't take him with me. And I sell a lot of paintings off the easel, and he chases them away. So it was a big mistake.
I thought it on my way down here, of course it was dark, and I live in an over 55, and I'm sitting, everybody's out there with their dog, flashlights and all this
Yeah.
stuff, and I'm going, wow.
And my dog's afraid of the dark, so if I don't get out at the right time. And I have an RV. I got a truck camper. I was going to do the plein air circuit and take the dog, and he'd be my company, and he hates being in that too. So that was a big mistake.
Not a good one.
I love him. He's a good little guy, but
What kind of dog?
he's a rat terrier. And he's afraid of rats. So a lot of good he does, but he keeps me warm at night, so. But yeah, I love painting outside, but you know, now is the time where I get a lot of commissions for Christmas, and I'll do houses, I'll do pets. If you go on my website, you see I do everything. So, because I get bored. I don't want to do the same thing all the time. But painting outside is absolutely the best, and there's really the only excuse that you can give yourself for not going outside is wind. You know, there's places where you can keep yourself from getting the wind, but there's really no excuse. You just get out there, it's so much fun. And once you get organized, and once you start painting out there more, you know, it's just, you don't forget stuff. Like, if you don't go out all the time, then it's so easy to forget things. But I'm going to be teaching a workshop in Colorado too, so if you want to get away to take a class, it's going to be on a dude ranch in Pueblo, Colorado. So I'm going to be doing that in May. So, and Carol's going to be teaching there one of these days soon too. If I have anything to do with it. She's not listening to me, so. It's more fun when you have a painting buddy.
It is. True.
She said you're going to Colorado.
Oh.
So you see, it's like a few little details now, and this is really starting to pop. Again, this is where I'm starting, you can't help it. It's such hard work that you get tired very quickly. So you have to keep using this discipline. Otherwise, you're going to get, you know, make a mess. And I'm making some of this beard too light now, and then I have to lighten some of the other beard, part of the beard. So I would have just kept on making mistakes and not making it better if I had not stopped and double checked on what I'm doing. So I always say double check, double check, double check.
Mirror and like ear and front face, but I like the.
It's the most important thing, because if you just paint and you're not double checking, you're just la-di-dying. And I used to tell my students, la-di-dying is against the law. Because you're just throwing the paint around. Stapleton Kearns will say you're licking the canvas. Because you're not paying attention and you're not getting anywhere either. So the best way to do that is to stand back.
Did you go see his demo last week?
No, I wanted to. He's really great. He now has a studio up in a gallery in Rockport. He's with his wife. There's a new wife, Dale Radcliffe, who was married to Charles Mavalli. So there's a little powerhouse for you. The Rockport Art Association, man, they're really starting to. They're getting all the big artists in there too. So if you have a chance to get up to Rockport, it's really worth a stop in. And all the artists, all these new artists are getting studios up there too, or galleries. So it's really becoming a destination. So you see how this is the light side of the face. So nothing over here can be lighter than anything over here. So I have to darken some of these lights over here so they're not lighter than these lights. And then some of my darks are just a little bit too dark. This is a kind of a high key painting. There's not a lot of darks in here. Does anyone else have any questions? So I'm also on Facebook. If you become a Facebook friend, you'll see I post something every day. I do most of my selling on Facebook, so don't be afraid to post on there. People get tired, they'll stop looking at you, but they won't see what you're up to if you don't post. You know, let them know. And where I paint every day, you know, a good 8 hours a day, I have a ton of paintings, so I gotta get rid of them.
Do you ever work from photographs though?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And and a lot of times what I'll do, like for my landscapes, is I'll go outside and I'll make it small because it's doable in 3 hours to do a small painting. And then I'll use a photo reference. So I have my color references from my painting and the drawing references from my photo. But I don't use a photo exactly like it is in the photo because photos lie. So now where we have our phones and our computers, we can lighten the darks and darken the lights so we can really see what the colors look like a little bit more. But if you don't go out plein air painting, you really don't know what nature does. And I've been doing it for over 40 years. So I hate to say that, but I've been painting forever, and I've painted in every kind of weather. I drove cross country by myself and painted in Wyoming for a month. I've been to Europe about 10 times now, and I used to take classes there, bring people there to paint, but I don't do that anymore. It's too much work.
You just went, didn't you?
I did. I just got back from the Amalfi Coast and Capri and Pompeii and Rome. Oh my God, I just love Italy. And last year I went to Greece, so every year I'm going, but I'm not taking painting groups there anymore. Just kind of taking care of myself these days. And I used to teach 5 days a week. So I used to paint in the morning, teach in the morning, paint outside in the afternoon, and then do my studio work till 11 o'clock at night every day. But it was I enjoyed it. So it didn't feel like, work necessarily, because I like doing it. But now the dog puts me to bed at 5 o'clock, so.
Always oils, Dianne?
Well, I've done pastels, I've done watercolors, but oils, I find I make the most money. So why not stick with them? And they're the easiest, believe it or not.
You said you sell a painting off an easel, so you're talking about somebody wants a painting that you're painting. Do they get it immediately? It has
Sometimes.
to dry? You have to varnish it?
No, I usually carry boxes with. I'm really good at what I do when I'm outside painting. I get ask Carol. I have a spiel.
She's prepared.
So
It's-
good at telling. Can I tell the story about when you painted that rowboat and the guy came in through, do you remember you painted the rowboat?
Oh, the
and
rowboat.
The man came out and you started immediately talking. She was talking to him and stuff, and he said, "Oh, I love that rowboat."
Oh,
He goes,
yeah.
"That's my father's, and it's his birthday." And she goes, "Well, you can buy it. It's for sale." And he said, "Well, how much?" And she said, "What do you got in your pocket?" And he had $200, so she sold it to him.
Yeah. When I went to Wyoming, I had $20 in my pocket. It was like I had just gotten back from Ireland, and I sat down and I'm like, "Geez, what's next?" And all of a sudden the phone rings, and it's this woman I had met 5 years earlier once, and she's talking and talking. My ears are ringing, and she's telling me about this trip to Wyoming for a month. And at the end, I didn't hear a word she said, but I said, yes, I'm doing it. And I sold all my paintings for rock bottom prices. My husband was out of work for 12 years before he died, so it was like I had 2 cents to rub together. And I drove cross country by myself, and I stopped at Mount Rushmore. And if I didn't stop, and I did a painting there, and if I didn't stop there, I would have hit a tornado. And then I stopped at Sioux City Falls, and it was the same thing. I was doing a painting there. And I told the guy how much I wanted, and he pulled out the money in his pocket. It wasn't what I asked for, but that got me on my way. And I sold 18 paintings in a month. The month of painting there, I did 64 paintings in a month, and I sold 18 of them. I came home with more money than I took with me. My teacher would always say, the best artist is a starving artist, because it forces you to work really hard, and that's how you get better. Because when you have enough money in your pocket, you're not, because it's so much work to be an artist. You have to really drag yourself outside. Because it takes work. You have to stand. You're in, sometimes cold or hot weather. You got bugs or wind or whatever, and it's really, really hard. So, you know, you really have to just do things without thinking, because the second you think about it, you're gonna talk yourself out of it.
True.
Because it's just so much work.
It's so hard to edit outside.
Well, it's hard to edit inside. It's hard. Every part about it is hard. But the more you do it, the more you remember and the less mistakes that you make. So that's the thing. If you paint once a week, you forget everything that you've done the week before, and you have to learn it over again. I paint all day, every day, you know, Monday through Sunday. And so I remember what I did yesterday. I remember, you know, making that mistake. Like today is the first portrait I've done since last winter. So yeah, I'm rethinking a lot of what I'm doing, but at the same time, I paint every day, so I'm still on fire. You know, if I didn't paint for a month, I'd have to work maybe 3 days to get my mojo back. Because even great artists, when they do their demos, you know, they have workshops. They'll paint for 3 days to get, you know, their juices all gelled and everything, and before they'll teach their class, because that's how fast you forget everything. So if I'm trying to make a thin line, like the white around the bee, you see I made these big fat lines, and now I'm going on the other side, and I can simply just do that, and you get a nicer line than if you try to do it with a small pencil, with a small brush. So now here, a lot of times when I'm painting outdoors, I'll make the house, like if the roof is going straight, I'll make it a little bit more whimsical or anything. And same with this hat, I can make it a little bit more flappy than it is, just to make it a little bit more exciting. You're the god of your own universe. So you can do anything you want with your painting. It's your painting. So you're in charge. And that's one thing that I've learned that I'm doing differently now than when I first started is when I work, if I have to work on a photo or even outside, I paint what I see and then I make changes for what I want. I'm sorry. When I talk, I always do this. Because I don't talk that much. I'm alone all the time. So I just need a little. I know I have one in
Looks
here.
great, Diane, really, really does.
If you want to come up for a second and take a peek at it while it's still in this unfinished stage, you can learn a lot too. I know I do a lot of my learning through observation, not through words. I'm a visual learner. So by seeing it, and seeing the brush strokes, and seeing the paint, and seeing the model next to it, make sure you try to stand so you can see them right next to each other. Now, again, turn around and look at the mirror and see if you can see both his face and the painting at the same time, and you can really make your comparisons that way.
Well, you
It's
gotta,
hard
you
to
gotta
do
look
it.
at 10 years younger.
Oh, go up like this. Look at both of them.
Or you can take a picture.
Yeah.
That's another way of being able to do it. But it's a great tool. This mirror is a little bit too small, but you don't want one you can't hold either.
Oh, I can see. Yeah, I'm like, oh, I see one.
You're probably best standing over here and looking over your left shoulder.
new iPhone, and I wish you could see the photos she's taking.
Yeah, it takes a
I want you in it too,
Right?
Diane, if you don't mind.
We do. We look 10 years younger.
Try the mirror.
Laura
It
took
takes a little bit
pictures
to
the same as
move it around to figure out the exact spot.
totally different. Young,
Yeah, that's it.
it creates miracles.
Try to
It's
see the painting
unbelievable.
and the model in the
Sorry.
same view.
She's sick of it. But
It's cool.
I'm wondering if she gets photos.
Yes, yep, that works
Probably
too.
would come out better with that.
Yes, I forgot about that. Again, I haven't done
The
that.
technology of the camera in those phones is unbelievable.
Yeah, so you want to look over your left shoulder. If you stand close to the hole, you can really get it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I might do some workshops, but it's like I've killed myself working my whole life and now I have to experience it. I'm just doing one.
I'm taking a life
Strap Museum, yeah.
Oh, who's teaching?
Lisa.
Do I try the mirror? Wow, that's good. So look over your left shoulder. Stand here and look over your left shoulder. Try to see both the artist and the art and the model in the same view.
I can.
No, I got them. Oh, you got it?
I got both of them.
Oh, you do? All right, good. So
Side
look
by
at how
side.
she's doing.
Open your eyes a little bit more for me.
Carol, you want 5?
I never used one.
Oh my God, it's the most important tool in your toolbox. That and duct tape. You wouldn't believe how often I use this stuff. When you paint outside, you have a lot of umbrellas and things, or lights, and I just tape. I also paint at weddings live. If you look on Facebook, you'll see what I just did up in Gloucester. It's not an easy job. It's probably one of the hardest things you can do. There's not a lot of artists that can do it. Alright, so I've had a little break. My throat is lozengered now, so I can continue.
Yeah, this is really, really cool.
Yeah, that is a great
So,
photo.
I'll put it in reference here, because I think that's just so beautiful. I'm no service now,
So again, if I make a mistake, I can always just use my paper towel and take it out. And again, this is a nice soft area here.
I can't clean it up.
So again, I'm still squinting. I never stop squinting because I don't want to see the details. I just want to see the big shapes. You're doing a great job, Bruce. I had a friend that he used to model for me all the time, and he would sit there, he would move a muscle, and he loved that. I just don't, not myself, I can't sit still, so. So it's these little details here that kind of finish a painting. And I'm looking for areas, like I'm pretty satisfied with the way it looks now. Now I just want to kind of soften some edges. This is getting a little old. This is actually a dog training stick that somebody gave me.
They look like knitting needles.
But it's kind of like, it's bent. I gotta get a new one. But you can also get, if you know any golfers, they have these sticks to kind of measure your swing too. So, but a friend of mine gave me this, so I have a little bit of affection for it. Again, time is your commodity when you're a painter, when you're painting the model. So using lots of brushes, having discipline, using the mirror, these are all things that are going to save you. And if you can't draw it well, soften it. Especially the mouth. John Singer Sargent used to say, paint the mouth like it's going to move. And I have to tell you, Carol, were you with me when we went? No, I went with another woman.
Where'd we go?
He wasn't perfect, okay? He's made some of the hands and feet too small. Did you notice that? John Singer Sargent, that show. I was looking for flaws because he's so good. So I just keep softening. And when I'm looking at this, I'm testing it to the values over here. So I'm squinting at this and seeing this with my peripheral vision softening these edges. There's really no hard edges in the face. The only place you're really going to see a hard edge is in the eyeglasses or in the eyes, because the center of interest are parts of the hat. So you want to keep it very, very soft. Again, squint, squint, squint. Let's see what this Gamsol did.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, just get rid of it. It's these unusual things that make the painting interesting too. Well, one time I was painting this girl and she had a very strong jaw. And she meant a lot to me and I really wanted to do a good job. But I just couldn't get it and I didn't want to offend her. So then I started painting somewhere else, again, by doing this peripheral vision thing. And I realized it wasn't her jaw I was drawing wrong, it was her shoulders. So if you don't move around and you try to fix something, it's not what you think it is half the time. So you really have to be on the ball. Another thing I like to do is put a cup around my eye because it takes the ambient light away and you can really see a little bit clearer what you're doing. All these tricks help. And if you do them, you know, everybody has a hand, right? So there's no excuses. And you don't want to leave something behind. You want to work on it all. And if you're out of paint and you only have 2 more seconds to paint, either put more out or quit. Don't be cheap and don't be lazy, which is very easy because right now I'm in the heat of things. Now it's panic time because I'm running out of time.
What was the first color? Alizarin crimson?
What's that?
What was the first color you put there?
I put alizarin by accident.
Okay.
I meant to put cad red.
Eagle eyes. No problem. That was a happy mistake.
So your brush strokes are important too. So what I like to do when I'm painting is I try to make it perfect at first and then I try to mess it up, looking for those happy accidents. So you see, I'm using a big brush here and I might use a brush stroke to make it more interesting. Or a color here and there. Or even by getting this piece of metal in there. It just makes it look pretty interesting. Now when I'm trying to make a straight line too, I'm not moving my arm. I'm moving my body. So I'm doing this. My arm is still and I'm kind of moving my arm because otherwise you'll never get it. It's just a little trick.
Do you ever have any paintings that are failures?
Oh, of course I do. No, never, never. Oh, millions and millions and millions of them.
Can you go back and fix them?
Sometimes, but I get bored. Like I love starting paintings. I hate finishing them.
That sounds like everybody.
Yeah. That's why plein air painting is so fun. It's just a hell of a time getting your ass out there and finding a spot where you want to paint. I always say, if you can't find a spot to paint in an hour, just stop where you are and start painting. Because then you start to see things. Sometimes it takes you, you know, you have to start seeing the colors like I was explaining here before you start to see them. So that's always my rule. It's like, if you can't find it right away, you're gonna waste the day. I used to live in Gloucester, and I'd spend the whole day wasted looking for a scene to paint, where all I had to do was this.
When you paint plein air, do you look for a certain type of time of day for the light, or?
Well, I mean, the best times of day to paint are in the morning and in the late afternoon, and sometimes you don't, like I was teaching, so I had to just paint in the afternoon and then be home at night. But now, I mean, I like to go to Florida because we stay right on the water, and I wake up and watch the sunrise every morning. That I can't do at my house unless I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. So that if you see my, like this one, not this one here, the one on the back, that's one of my, I did a whole series of these. They're all like 30 by 40, so I sold every single one of them. So it paid for my vacation too. We used to go skiing up in New Hampshire, and my husband and daughter would go skiing, and I would be down at the bottom, and I'd do a painting of the ski slope, and I'd sell every one of them, and that would pay for our vacations. So, I mean, there's no really, the young people left, so I would always say to their parents, an artist has more of a chance of making a living than a lawyer does coming out, 70% more of a chance to make a living than a lawyer does now coming out of school, because it's critical thinking that an artist does, and a lawyer, you can just look at, templates all day long. So you really have to have that, you're using your brain, and there's so little of that now with all these computers and everything out. So, painting too is, don't be afraid of making mistakes, because you might make that happy mistake that really brings your painting alive. So you've got to take chances, and usually towards the end I like to see if there's something that I can do just to bring a little bit of magic to the painting. Now this is a little bit of blue that I just put on my brush. So I'm going to kind of shake this around here now because of all the orange in here. I like the blue note just to add a little bit of harmony to my painting. Does anyone else have any questions? I hope you all join me on Facebook, because I usually post every day something that I've painted or where I'm going to be. And you see I can talk and paint at the same time, so I have no problem being outdoors painting.
Do you use a certain size when you paint plein air? Do you work smaller?
I've been working bigger. Like, when I started learning how to paint, I would work on a 9x12, and I'd go out 3 times at the same time of day. So I'd work on it for 3 hours. I'd come back the next day and do the middle part, and then I'd come back the next day and do the finish. Now I can do what I used to do in 3 days in an hour. But I did that for years and years and years and years and years. So it's not easy, but if you like to plein air paint and you want something that you can finish, then don't be afraid to go back at the same time and same atmosphere to finish it. And at this point too, you have to be really aware of what you're doing, because you never know when you're going to make that really happy accident. So if you do a brush stroke, you don't want to take it away if it looks good. Look at that blue color with that just yummy. And again, I can just use a little bit of my paper towel just to soften things. Because hair is soft. Anything that's round is soft. Anything that's close in value is soft. And Richard Schmid was the king of edges. And I always said that's my last frontier, is because I never really understood him until I watched him paint. And I still have problems with it, but you're never going to be satisfied with what you do. So you just got to keep doing it.
That's it.
I'm going to choke if I keep going. That's almost 2 hours.
I think that's the best one I've seen you do.
Oh, get out! Well, it's the model.
He's still not moving.
Take one picture.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you guys for coming. This is my favorite thing to do, and then I get paper, and it's like,
Yeah.